The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
From writer-director Ryan Johnson.
The Holy Grail. A perfectly impossible crime.
Wake Up Dead Man has critics singing its praises.
God help me. Anything else?
It's a deliciously entertaining mystery.
That's nice.
It's certified fresh.
It's a miracle.
Okay, you're freaking me out now.
It's the best Knives Out movie yet.
This case is solvable, right?
Oh, you'll see. It's fun.
Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery starring Daniel Craig. Now playing on Netflix.
Retirement isn't just about closing out your career. It's mornings that begin with a sunrise instead of an alarm, and the freedom to live the life you've always dreamed of. With a New York Life financial professional, you'll have the guidance to make it real, so your years of hard work become the life you've always imagined. Your life. New York Life. More powerful together. Start today at nyl.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
The Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good morning. Welcome into another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Daniel Shoptaw at C70. With me, as always, Alan Medlock, a Medlock 1, coming to you Saturday morning. It's been a couple of days after Christmas. Alan, are you starting to recover from all the holiday stuff?
I wouldn't necessarily say recover, but I'm getting there. We have been awfully lazy around the house, had family in, and we hosted. So, there's a little bit of movement today. We're going to get out in the world a little bit, and my daughter has to go to Arkansas for to visit boyfriend's family. So we'll clear out the house a little bit, but then she comes right back tomorrow. So, as a teacher, the minute you get out of school, it's just you're living on a different planet until you start getting the report dates back and all kinds of stuff like that. And this year I really welcomed it.
Yeah, I imagine this is the first year I've taken the week of Christmas off. Usually I do work then, but it's been nice to not have to get up and get moving and have, just hang out with the family and have them all under the roof as it is. And so, we'll have to, it's going to maybe a rude awakening Monday morning when I have to get back to work. But now it's been a lot of fun.
Well, there's one wrinkle that was thrown in this week to me was we've had 80 degrees all week.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in shorts. I've been in shorts the majority of the week. Now, most everybody's like, oh, that's nice or whatnot. But around Christmas, it stinks. And for me, I want to put up a picture of what I was doing on Christmas as opposed to what I will be doing on, probably our opening day in March, where we'll probably be in hoods and all that good stuff. So, if it's going to be 80 degrees, be 80 degrees year round. That's just the way that I look at it because I hate cold weather. So, yeah, it's going to be the rude awakening for me will be how bad it's going to get tomorrow, and probably when
Mhm.
we get back to practice next week, we'll be in our ski gear.
Yeah, yeah, that is the thing. It has been a weird weather pattern. I'm not big on the warm Christmas either. I know some people are, but yeah, it's probably going to be warmer on Christmas than it will be Easter next year.
Yeah, oh
Um,
yeah, you get out to look at lights, and it just doesn't do it justice.
No, but that cold front is coming, as you said.
Yep.
Tomorrow's supposed to be high of 70 something here and low of like 29. So it will change. But what hasn't changed much? Well, may I say that? That take that back. What else? The Cardinals roster has maybe not changed the way we thought it would the last time we recorded, but it has made some modifications. And the most recent one, and probably I don't know. I don't wanna say it was unexpected because we've talked about it, but I don't sure that I saw Willson Contreras moving, especially before somebody like a Brendan Donovan. What about you?
Well, reading the reports at the end of the season, you kind of thought that would be one that if there was a situation where someone was held onto, it could possibly be Contreras, and to see that he moved out as quick as possible, it is somewhat surprising. Now his market developed so fast, especially
Mhm.
after the Alonso deal, that I think that he became a hot commodity, and they kind of had to move quickly. Where on the flip side, I think they're being as patient with Donovan as can be, because his market is still developing, because you have a lot of the infielders that are still out there.
Mhm.
So yes, I was somewhat surprised. I will say though, as you could see, that some of the first basemen and the right-handed bats and all those guys that were leaving, when I saw the headlines, I wasn't necessarily surprised. I kind of gotten to the point where I felt like all the guys that could be traded probably were going to be traded at this point. So none of it was going to be a major shock.
No, although I was in the middle of our, Christmas open house party that
Sure.
went having to pull out my phone and seeing a notification, and, yeah, then I had to spend some time that evening catching up. Um
100%. Same thing happened to me. We were out and about running around, and then we had to do some Christmas shopping outside of town on Monday, which really gummed up the works as far as my gossiping on the Cardinals went.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I mean, I guess maybe that added to a little bit of the surprise is we kind of felt like things were shut down, right, for Christmas. We kinda thought, well, if it hadn't happened by now, it's not going to. And yet they sneaked that in. I don't know, and the second big trade that's the Cardinals have made this offseason, both with the Boston Red Sox, and, if you get your value where you get your value, but I mean, at some point in time, they gotta go elsewhere, right? I mean, because
Sure.
even now you hear the rumors of them trading Donovan to the Red Sox, or at least were some of that. I don't know that recently. And I know that, we pointed out that I think only 2 of the 6 prospects they've gotten back out of the 2 trades were there during the Chaim Bloom era, so it's not like he's, just bringing in his favorites, but it's still odd to see, the first 2 major trades of a regime, as it were, going to the same place.
Yeah, it was. It was a little bit strange. I really thought that Contreras was probably going to be a Met, and
Mhm.
then uh, rally back to Boston again. I was thinking, well, at least they they were able to maybe move some guy, maybe move in an arm that they wanted, and potentially that first deal that they weren't able
Mhm.
to satisfy. So, on an optimistic side of it, they're like, well, maybe they did get the arms that they wanted. Not that they didn't in the first, but maybe they had to go to a second tier of priority to get those guys on the gray trade, considering that they had to send money to what they did with Contreras, where they needed that right-handed bat and in their lineup, and you could probably pull someone that was a more steady performer in what could be your potentially 26 rotation. Maybe maybe that is just digging a little too deep into it, but it seems like they got the guys that they wanted.
Yeah, it does, and I think there is something to what you're saying about maybe they had to leave something on the table for the grade trade that they were able to go back and get in this trade. I think about, um that trade deadline is 23 when they traded Jordan Hicks to the Blue Jays, and then just a couple days later traded Paul DeYoung up there, and ironically got a lot more for Paul DeYoung overall than
Yeah.
they did for Hicks in the bigger picture. So yeah, I mean, some of that is you've already had those discussions, and you've probably maybe already talked about the guy, and so it goes that way. But it's still a little bit odd. I think that the way Contreras talked, I thought it was going to have to be like almost the perfect situation for him to leave. And maybe Boston is exactly what he needs, but it seems to me like as things went on, especially after the Gray trade, his window of acceptability got a lot bigger. Because he was saying the right things at the end of the sprint, at the end of the season. Wanted to be here even if they weren't going to be good. Wanted to put his mark on things so he would know that the next time they won that he had a hand in it. All that kind of stuff. And then just weeks later, he's accepting this trade to the Red Sox. So I don't fault him at all. And I'm sure things did change significantly. But I at least from where we were at the end of the season, this is a bit of a change.
Sure. I always kind of wonder what now. Contreras has 2 years left on his deal, correct?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay. And I was looking, that question right there alone made me look through, what maybe some of the expectations of winning may be.
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily a bad thing, because I know that you hear the long-term play and how long this could take. And I'm not so certain. They don't think they'll be greatly improved by 27. Does that make sense to you? The reason I say that is I think I didn't think there was any chance at all or very little slim chance at all that Burleson was going to be traded. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is I think that one, you read a lot of what was reported, and you could see the reports that Marmol and everybody thought so highly of him that he felt like he was coming into his own. I feel like if you would have heard his name traded, his name more on the block, and I don't anticipate it, but it could be on the maybe the break. I don't know. I don't think so, but that could be something that would happen. That would probably open my eyes a little bit more than anything. That you could tell that is like the threshold, the 2-year threshold that they're looking at. And I think that they probably told Contreras that of, hey, we anticipate that things are going to be rough. This is the playbook we're going to use next year. A lot of young pitching. We're going to figure some things out. That Contreras thought, wait, this could be a better chance to go and compete now. Mm-hmm. As to where I think St. Louis may be dipping their toes in the water in 27, but I think that they may be a better team overall and may spend money by 28, if that makes sense.
Maybe so.
And I feel like Burleson being the starting first baseman was the litmus test on that. I hope that all kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think that, Contreras also did have an option for 28 that they could have picked up. But that's also spending, $30 million over the next 2 years, plus that out, maybe
and
50, 60 when you get up to the end of it. For a guy that's, by the time you actually are ready to compete, is going to be more on the downhill slide of his career, probably.
Sure. And one, I don't think this played a major factor into it, because I think that you have to, I think that the game plan right now, which has been so refreshing, was, hey, let's get what we can for these expiring contracts. We know what we are for a little while. Let's bring these guys in. And I think they've done a great job. That's one of the reasons, even if I think that I will enjoy the season in St. Louis next year as much as normal, just because you have a good idea of what's coming at this point. And that basically has been based on the idea that we have clear communication now. And it's just a refreshing element. Not that everything was bad, but there was just the mystery of the Band-Aid the whole time to avoid what they will potentially go through this year, to where now you're just like, okay, this is going to be refreshing. The young guys are going to play. They don't have to worry about their next at bat every time they're at the plate, because you may be down, you may be up, one of those type of situations. All that to say, I think may have been a factor of we may have to find a heck of a lot more at bats for a Herrera if he's healthy and can't catch. I do feel like that may have played a part.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I think even in general, the Cardinals, like many teams, have wanted to keep that DH spot open as much as possible, just because of people getting days off or things of that nature. But you're right. I mean, if Herrera can't catch, then he's probably they're going to place a little bit of outfield, but he's mainly going to DH, which would have forced Burleson into a lot of problems. Either he would have had to play some outfield, and then again we've talked about this. It's a crowded roster. It still is a crowded roster, even
Sure.
with these trades. There's still moves that need to be made, although more in the infield than the outfield. And I don't know, what we can talk about that in a little bit, but and if you're looking for analysis of what the Cardinals got back, you're probably looking in the wrong spot. And you've probably already gotten that. They got Hunter Dobbins, who has made a major league debut. We got a prospect that his last name is Fajardo, I believe, and I'm not going to be able to say his first name. And then Blake Kaida, two guys that are, lower down the list. And that's, for me, not being a prospect person. I know we've got the great people in our in our sphere that do a lot of good stuff. Kyle and Ron Walton, and you got Redbird's Farmhand. You've got a lot of different people out there that can look at prospects, and people do prospects all the time. But so I mean, you can find information out on these guys, but for me, that's the downside of these trades is the Cardinals aren't getting back anybody that is going to make an impact now, right? You're doing a lot of these guys should be good when the Cardinals are good next time, but it means it's going to take 2 or 3 years to see how this pans out. And we've seen, granted, we've got different people running it. Until we know, though, we've seen trades like this that just never pan out. And there's a non-zero chance that the Cardinals have traded 2 big, stars and gotten little to nothing in return. Now, hopefully that's not the case, and I don't believe that it probably is, but it's going to be a while before we know if this is good or bad.
Sure. And you know what? That's part of my enthusiasm with these trades is not only just the change aspect, and that, hey, now we have a plan. And I say all of this, and I do not want it to sound as like a detriment to Mo, because I don't think he gets enough credit. The end for the next few years is going to set the standard, unfortunately, for what his reputation was. And that, like I've said forever, I don't necessarily think it's his fault, which is going to bring me to a point I'm going to get to a little bit later. But the last few years of the Band-Aid aspect of it, to avoid this and making the comment of, hey, we're not going to rebuild here, we're not doing those things. You see now that that now change was needed, and this may have been something that's probably was necessary, years ago. If you want to build that next system of what the Cardinals used to be. All that being said, a lot of the enthusiasm for me just comes from the change in general. And you bring in the guys and they're stockpiling pitching, and that's exactly what they said they were going to do. I will say, and this isn't a counter to your complaint at all, because I understand the same situation, because this is going to be somebody we won't see for 2 to maybe 3 years. I know the Baseball Reference guys were thrilled about Brandon Clark coming over from Boston. Like they said that was an uncardinal like move, and that could be potential to just be massive for St. Louis, and that really stuck out. And I was kind of thrilled to hear that. And then you see the 2 guys that you see, Fitz and who did they just bring over in the Contreras deal? That
Dobbins.
You just put his name, the one with the knee injury.
Dobbins.
The I would assume those two are guys that are going to be in the rotation this year.
I think they're definitely contenders for that.
What
Go ahead.
I don't know, and this could lean into my overly optimistic view, but I feel like guys like that can exceed your expectations pretty quickly just by coming out and competing in a new environment, and now you're not blocked by the guys that they were blocked in Boston. And and the opportunity cost for it could make them to where this could be a competitive team, over 500 team, mainly because you have much better pitching than you anticipated having, with even if you did have a Sonny Gray.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with it
Listen,
overly.
I understand your skepticism. I don't want you to think that I'm saying, hey, they're going to be a heck of a lot better than we anticipate. But I do think that they're positioning themselves to where these competitions are going to matter, and we're going to see the best of some of these guys that we haven't necessarily seen in the past few years.
Well, and I think just even, I mean, it goes to what you're saying. The big thing is there's upside on all these guys. Now, whether they'll hit it or not, or whether 2 or 3 of them will hit it, who knows? But you don't have the Miles Michaelis where you knew what you were going to get. Even Sonny Gray, right? You knew pretty roughly what you were going to get. And it does give you the opportunity now to not have to go through a whole year if Andre Palante is what he was last year.
Yes.
If he's what he was the year before, sure, great, you're in good shape. But if he's like what he was last year, they pretty much had to keep running those guys out there. One, because I think they had the mindset of it had to be really, really bad before they were going to make any moves. Two, because they didn't have a whole lot of options at Memphis to, take somebody out of the rotation, right? I think they'll be a little bit more aggressive with that this year because there are some different options, and people that have the flexibility to come up and go down. I think we'll see at least one of Fitz or Dobbins in the rotation, maybe both, just depending on how things pan out. But also, the Cardinals haven't seemed to rule out going out and getting some sort of veteran pitcher, and I think that's safe. And maybe a good idea because all these young guys haven't necessarily put up a whole lot of innings in a season before, right? I mean, we saw a full season at Matthew Liberatore last year, which he'll be able to take another step. But some of these guys, have health issues or they've had other issues.
Sure.
We'll talk about Dustin May coming in here in a little bit, but it feels like they still wouldn't mind having this guy that has been around the block that can pitch at least half the year, maybe that kind of the Steven Matz type of guy, right? I mean, not Steven Matz, obviously, because he's already got his deal, but the kind of guy that can, although Matz had his own health issues, but the idea of Steven Matz maybe where he could, pitch in the bullpen and then, pitch in your rotation if necessary. If somebody gets hurt, here's your guy to kind of fill in. I don't know if they'll be able to find that guy this year, but I have a feeling they'll bring in somebody like that to spring training, if only as an insurance policy.
Oh yeah, I would think that that's probably a given. I did wonder where May would fit into that ideology a little bit with the injury history. Maybe not. I'm not certain, but yeah, I think that you're going to see the Cardinals pretty active up into February. Just kind of piecemealing, figuring out how can you get that guy at the like I said, would this not be the perfect situation for a Kyle Gibson? That type of player, one of those guys that obviously made a huge impression on the organization, being in the area, coming in, doing things the right way. And I mean, heck, he's back on, after 1 year out, the Cardinals weekly media stuff. Somebody like that, would he not be the perfect fit in a situation for them now to where it's like, hey, this is a guy that takes the ball every fifth day and goes out and competes, one of those type of situations. I mean, I feel like you're going to get somebody of that ilk.
Yeah, just kind of looking at the free agents over here at MLB Trade Rumors. I mean, there's some interesting names that stand out. Some of those are probably more than they would want, but you know, I don't know. I mean, Zach Allen's more than that, but Austin Gumber is a guy that could come back. I don't know that that's really great, but Jordan Montgomery's on this list, and I don't know what Jordan Montgomery's market is, but if it's not,
Well, that's a name that would interest me.
yeah, I mean, unless his market is significant, it's a situation where he could come in and plan to pitch all year. And anybody on this deal, anybody that came into St. Louis right now, there's a Quintana that could come back. You even have like the guys. I would worry about like a Frankie Montross just because of his health issues, and it's not necessarily going to give you that consistency. But Wade Miley or somebody like that. These are guys that can come in and maybe even if they pitch half a season for you, that's good. You can flip them at the deadline.
Sure. Well, that leads me to another question: Is the best case scenario for that pitcher and for Dustin May being traded in July?
Probably.
Yeah, I want to see that's gut feeling. Yes, you're 100%. I completely feel you, because I think that not only can you strike when it's hot, you bring over a prospect, and you could potentially bring over a guy at the deadline who is part of the next movement that could be in that lineup pretty quickly. And to go back on this, I feel like that's what they're waiting on Donovan for too.
Yeah.
I think that whoever they bring over here is either going to be a guy that can be in your lineup or rotation this year, or is going to be pushing to do it and doing that at a high level. That's just a feeling I get with the Donovan situation. But you're right. I've been thinking about that question a lot of, is your best case scenario with any veteran that you have right now that you sign only going to be here for the short term? And just agree with you. My gut feeling is yes, that would probably be the best move.
Yeah. I mean, Dustin May signs, and we didn't get a chance to talk much about Dustin May because he signed like the afternoon of our last show or something of that nature. But the contract that he signs has a mutual option for 2027. Mutual options never get picked up, right? I mean, once in a blue moon, just because it takes both sides. And if you're good enough for one side to pick it up, you're good enough that the other side doesn't want to, because you want to be a free agent or vice versa. So they're not planning on him, I don't think, for 2027, assuming there is 2027, which we always have to caveat. So yeah, I think that's right. I think they would love to see him pitch. I mean, now the other side of that is, I think that's right. I guess there is the possibility that if Dustin May pitches like Dustin May was coming up as a prospect, then maybe you negotiate a different kind of contract and you keep him around.
Sure.
But I think most likely best case scenario is he pitches well and then gets dealt at the deadline to a contender.
Well, that was going to be my second question, is how much of is this a get us through and see what you can do for yourself? Or is there any element of hey, this is your prove it contract and we may be interested in you being here long term? He's a Texas guy. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter much anymore. It's a lot of times you get that element of, hey, this is where I am. That's still 10 hours from Dallas, but still it's a guy that I could see being someone that would be like, hey, I'm willing to take a risk if you take a risk on me, if I show that I'm healthy and can be what I used to be. I do wonder about that.
Yeah, because
how much of that is happening now? Are we just thinking, hey, you be good, then we're going to move you because we're going to bring in somebody that we think will be better in the future, because that's the advertisement. But is there an element of, hey, if you're good, you may be the next part of this? And I don't think in any way, shape, and form that this happens, but on a positive note to me, is there any way to where the return on Donovan isn't great, but you feel like he's great for your team, that Donovan were to stay? You know what I'm saying? Did those things correlate at all? I mean, is it, I don't think that's going to happen. But is there any future outlook for a May to re-sign and a Donovan to re-sign? Or is that just so short-sighted in 1 year that, hey, they're going to bring in as much as they can because they're just stockpiling talent.
I think with May, there is a possibility because he's 28 and he's not the 32-year-old veteran or something that you're probably on the downside. There's still possibilities for him to be good for, 5-6 years maybe. And
Yes.
so if they come at it and if he looks more like, and this is a test of somewhat of the development system as well, but if he looks that good, maybe they do. I think there's a possibility. I don't think it's a great possibility, but I think that it's not, you can't rule that out. I think with somebody like a Jordan Montgomery that comes in, that's the guy that's here for half a year at best, and when they trade him. But in May, if he looks just fabulous, then there's a possibility they have the discussions about letting him stay there. Now, if he looks that fabulous, he may also price himself out of their market, in which they still feel like they need to trade him. So that's a possibility. But I think that they at least have a plan C or D that includes May in the future. Donovan, I don't know. I think there's a possibility, but Donovan would be what? Wouldn't he be like 30 when his contract's done?
Well, it would be. He's yes. He turns 29 next month.
Okay, so he would be almost 31 by the time he was a free agent. I think best case, I think the biggest thing for Donovan would be he would be able to play his 2 years here and then go to the free agent market. And I think that's another reason why they really want to trade him now while
sure.
He's coming off one of his better years. He's got more control. He's younger.
And
all
the
that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's just the perfect storm for him to be traded right now. And as I've seen others say, if you're not going to trade him, then you have to sign him to an extension so that he doesn't walk right as you're starting to, you're having to, if you want to keep him for the next great Cardinal team, you want to do it now instead of when he hits free agency. I think that we'll see Donovan move. Somebody's got to, right? I mean, we've talked about this crowded roster, and it feels like everything they've indicated that they want J.J. Weatherholt to start in St. Louis. Well, right now, if you count him, it's Mason Wynn, Brendan Donovan, J.J. Weatherholt, Nolan Gorman, Nolan Arenado for 3 spots on the other side, second, third, short. So, I mean, not that he fixed all that, but he can help that spot situation and bring in theory, your best return of the winter. So, yeah, I mean, you want to get hypotheticals and get into the what ifs. Yeah, I think there's a universe out there where Brendan Donovan signs an extension and stays the St. Louis Cardinal, but I don't think it's the one we're living in.
Sure. And as I love Donovan, and I would love for him to be a long-term, lifelong Cardinal, but it just makes more sense to move him right now. It's I've always kind of wondered though of when will be the first extension of these guys, or is that possible? Is it only the possibility of Wynn and maybe a Scott down the line? And I'm just saying this outside of non-pitchers that those arguments start to happen. I don't know.
Well, I mean, some would argue that you make the overture to Weatherholt, even though he hasn't played yet, right? I mean, we saw that,
that's new. Yeah, you're right. Those things happen.
Some of those some places have done that, where they've signed their big guy to a 5-year deal or whatever the case may be, buyout, and just gets that sign of security. I would be even with this regime, I would be a little bit surprised if they went that way. Maybe after he's played a year, but I'd be a little bit surprised if they did it before he started.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that other than that, I think you're looking at Mason Wynn. And and the fact is, I mean, somebody pointed out, I think, I'd have to look, maybe it was in one of the Discords, that maybe Jake over there, the contract, like right now, if they trade Nolan Arenado, payroll will be like, it'd be like under 100 million or something like that. You get low, and I think you're going to have. I mean, to one degree, you have to spend some money because the union makes you, without getting a grievance filed, and that's about the only place you can spend it. Unless you go out and spend a lot of money on some sort of free agent, which they don't plan to do. So, I gotta feel like their focus right now is working on a Nolan Arenado trade if they can make that happen, which I'm still not 100% sure they can. Obviously the Donovan trade, and probably seeing if there's a market for Gorman, because if they can't trade Arenado, they might have to trade him.
I agree with that one.
But other, after the, kind of probably on the back burner, some maybe occasional, they take a break and talk to Wynn's agent or something like that. But I would not be. I mean, granted, we don't know how this organization or this front office is going to run because we're used to those spring training extensions out of the Mo. That may not be the case with Chaim Bloom, but if it was, I wouldn't be too surprised if Mason Wynn had an extension this winter.
Yeah, that's. I think that when the dust settles with some of the trades, I think that you'll probably may not hear. I would love to see that. I would love to see a Wynn, Burleson. That's a good point on the weather hold aspect. One of those three that you're like, hey, we're going to double down. We know that we're going to be better soon. We're going to be better soon, and we're doing this the way that we feel like we've done it. That we want to do it. That would be super exciting, and I think that you almost need to do that as far as maybe some ticket sales aspects of it, which I don't think that they're necessarily that worried about this year because the board rebuild has been much more prevalent than I thought. Although it's not necessarily what they're saying, but everybody knows what it is. I mean, the messaging is out there. I would love to see those things, but it brings me to another point that I was going to ask you about, because I did see that about the payroll being so low and that, hey, you have to do that, and now they're also going to be receiving the tax. One of those things which your profit sharing type deal, which seems a little bit, it seems crazy, but I mean, those are all things that go into this. I wanted to say, well, since we're talking about money, I'll bring it up now, but I did want to remind me later to rally back on the Gorman Walker aspect of this. Do you worry at all that all this money that's being reinvested, and I understand that they've paid a lot for Gray to pitch somewhere else, and they're paying $8 million for Contreras to play first base for someone else. Are you worried at all with the DeWitts that when it push comes to shove that they don't spend the money like we're being led to believe that they will whenever that next group is ready? When you're next, let's say you've built up to where that next Trey Turner's ready to go, or the next Bryce Harper, are they going to do it?
I think at some point in time, when they think they are ready, they will go out and get the player they need.
Okay.
Will it ever be, the Bryce Harper, the top of the guy that's the biggest free agent out there? I don't know if I go that far, but I think
I can even sense the apprehension of your voice for the second tier guy a little bit, and that's my concern.
I think that I'm not too concerned. I'm interested. What I'm more interested is will they spend maybe a year before they're ready? Because if Bryce Harper, the prime Bryce Harper, hits the market about a year before you think you're ready, will you go ahead and get him so he'll be there when you are ready? Or do you wait until the season before you're ready to make a run? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Sure.
And I don't know.
That's actually how Theo won a title. Yeah. If you know that the Cubs were really good about that. Is they were like, hey,
Yep.
we may not be where we want to be next year, but in 2 years we're going to be. And that was a big
Yeah.
selling point to Hayward. And those guys,
Mhm.
and that would be that would really start re-energizing the fan base, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Now again, I mean, they're still a couple ways away from that, and who knows? I mean, it's not.
Sure.
I mean, but it'd be kind of like the idea if you thought you were going to compete in 2027, you'd sign Kyle Tucker now. Um, again, that's just a hypothetical situation type of thing, but um, I don't know about that. Um, because I think they will spend when they feel like they need to spend. I don't know, and maybe Heimblum can talk them into things. Maybe, he can point to the fact that, we've saved so much money over the last few years because we haven't had it, but these guys are going to be ready in a couple years. And this guy fits us so well, but he won't be there if we don't get him now. I mean, that's a possibility. But that's also probably, whoever's free agent next year at the best, and maybe the year after that. And again,
Yeah.
all this still depends on what the next CBA looks like.
Yeah, the albatross that exists. And I'm trying not to think about it because there's so much in the Cardinals
Yeah.
universe right now that's going on. You're just like, let some of the other teams worry about that for now. If that makes any sense. The I had wondered about that. I'm what I don't want to hear, and I think that this would be the collapse of the organization if you start hearing, hey, we're not gonna spend yet because we've yet to make 3 million fans come back.
Right.
That ideology worries me a little bit. Is that you're just like, okay, then the Band-Aid wasn't necessarily Mo, the Band-Aid were the owners. And that's it's just a concern I have that one, do I necessarily think it will happen that they're going to hold out on these things? I don't. I think that now the writing's on the wall, and we've heard enough reporting and heard enough of the comments from ownership that, hey, they've identified a problem here.
Yeah.
Does that
I do think that.
completely put me at ease? And I can't necessarily. That's 100% correct.
I think also what we have to factor in is that Bill DeWitt, the junior, is 82 years old and seems to be in
Yeah,
fairly good shape, but not the shape that he was. Will there come a point in the next few years where he turns over control, or hopefully not, but pass away or whatever, and Bill DeWitt the third takes the reins? Now, I know there's some people that think that this team wants to sell. I don't think they do, and I don't think they do it. Even if they have an idea of selling, they're not going to do it until they're able to let Bill DeWitt the third inherit and get rid of a lot of those capital gain taxes. But I think that his approach to things may be a little bit different than his father's approach to things. He's coming up on the business side of it all. I still think he wants to put a winning team out there, but I think that might be an issue. I mean, we just don't know. I don't know what his approach to spending will be compared to his dad, who has shown that, not that they're going to open it up for the biggest guys, but one, they like cost certainty. That's why they traded for Goldschmidt and Arenado when their contracts were already locked in. And two, they will try to spend at least to some level. We forget sometimes the Hayward and Price, and even Pujols the first day, all those offers that were up there that they were willing to spend that just didn't get taken. Whether they knew it or not, who knows? But I think you have to at least give them credit for the willingness to spend. So yeah, I mean, if there's a change in ownership somewhere along the way, then that puts a whole nother wrinkle into things.
yeah. That's just on in your downtime thinking. You're like, all the trades are great, and all the stockpiling of these guys is awesome, and you feel a little re-energized with the guys that were coming, and you're optimistic about Wayne and Burleson and Scott. I think that I still hold out hope that Walker is going to is going to be a big league producer. All those things. Herrera. but I just hope when push comes to shove and it's time that you have to go and get the big arm, or you have to go and get the big lineup piece, that they're willing to do it and to satisfy the organization and the fans that hey, we're back and we want to do this. I just hope that happens, and there's just a slight skepticism that we may be disappointed. I don't I hate feeling that way.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainties, and you just never know what things are going to be until they are, right? I I don't know that you could ever build a team fully from your minor leagues. I think you're still going to have to go out and, even if it is to
Sure.
get that last piece, sometimes you're going to have to get it out of the free agent market. And so I feel like they're ready to do that when it needs to be done. We'll just have to see when has to be done. You said you wanted to loop back to Gorman and Walker. Where you want to go with that?
Well, I do think that there's a double down on both those guys a little bit more so Walker than anything. I think that as far as being the prize talent that he was, up until a couple years ago, and to see that he really struggled with the big leagues, I think that they're doubling down on him potentially being that middle of the order guy. I also feel like that may be coming with Gorman a little bit. I think you're 100% spot on though. That just due to lineup, construction, that it may have to be a Gorman that pays the price outside of an Arenado if they can't move Nolan. But I do feel like there's enough messaging now that they feel like you're going to see a lot of Gorman and more Walk. I think Walker will be an everyday piece this year, and Newtmar maybe when he's healthy. But I think that you are going to see, some reinvestment in the Gorman and Walker this year, and I think that they're still optimistic that they can play. And that's I feel like that has gone out there because you've heard absolutely nothing about Walker moving. Now that's also a selling low type situation, but I think that they feel like they can turn him around. Gorman, I think that the only time you do hear him is that you heard some Arizona link and things like that when they were, and you might if they trade Marte. I don't know. You're coming there to try to hit bombs, and he has the intriguing power, but I still think you're going to see them in the St. Louis lineup, to where at one point I thought that you're looking at and more and a lineup that I thought that I would like to see is a Weatherholt, Wynn, Burleson, and Donovan type situation as your daily lineup, to where I think that you see a Gorman as a mainstay there, and they do everything they can to trade Arenado, no matter what they're saying with that they have to move him out. That the only way that Gorman probably does get moved now is if they have to, because they can't move Nolan out.
I think it's possible. I think, the Cardinals are also supposedly still in the market for a right-handed hitting outfielder. I wonder if that will mean, there's a lot of people that, and I don't know that I disagree, think that Walker needs to just start in Memphis next year.
Mm-hmm.
And we wouldn't see him until like the All-Star break at best. That kind of thing, that he needs to go down and not just have 2 or 3 weeks of good hitting. He needs to really look like he deserves to come to the major leagues.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think there's something to that. I don't know.
Well, I think that's in fairness to him.
Yeah. And he's still pretty young. Still would be completely, but it's his last option year too, I think. And a guy's going to be arbitration eligible, I think, at the end of next season. The whole Walker situation is a mess, but if he does spend some time in Memphis, then that would also make sense to get that outfielder. So, I don't think they're going to trade Walker. Like you said, I mean, it'd be bargain basement price on him, but I don't think that there's any guarantee that he'll be in St. Louis next year either.
Sure.
And who knows? I mean, he could come to spring training and look completely different and have made changes that they like and have a good spring, and they might say it's worth a shot. It looks like he can, this doesn't look like a fluke, But, the whole reason that he got his job in the first place was a good spring and actually a good first half of a spring because he kind of tailed off after it kind of been anointed as a free agent or a starter. So I don't know. I think this is a huge year for Walker. I think Gorman, maybe who Gorman is. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're going to have the strikeouts, you're going to have everything, but you're going to have the power if he clicks. It is what it is. But I think for Jordan Walker, I mean, this is a huge season to determine if he still has prospect status or if he's going to be another Dylan Carlson who came up and did well and then is now kind of bouncing around the league.
Yeah. Are we speaking of just of prospect guys and I say that in such a I don't want it to sound like in a negative connotation at all. Are we what do we make of JC? And here's my thing: was JC brought over? Is my timeline right? Was JC brought over in Bloom's first year as an advisor?
Is it advisor? Was advisor?
Or was he brought over the year before Bloom was involved? I can't remember.
He was brought over at the 23 trade deadline. He came over in the Jordan,
which would have been Bloom's first year,
which I believe would have been
right?
the year. That would have been the year. No. Let's see. 25 Bloom had an official title and knew that he was going to move in. 24, I think, is the year he did the audit.
Okay. So it was a year before
that. Yeah.
Okay. Because I wondered about
unless my timeline's off.
Well, I mean, they did trade for him. You know what I mean? And he has shown that he can hit. Are we forgetting him a little bit in the youth aspect of all this? Or is it a situation where, this is just somebody that Bloom took over, type situation? Because I do kind of wonder if you don't bring in a veteran outfielder, does that veteran outfielder right-handed hitter turn into JC?
I mean, that's possible. I think that JC, at least in my mind, I don't know about anybody else's, is that backup guy. Like, he's a good guy to have, but he's not necessarily going to be your full-time starter. Now, could he become a poor man's Brendan Donovan? Playing outfield, playing infield, yeah, maybe. And
having that kind of be the poor man's Matt Carpenter.
Yeah. I mean, it could be. I think he's going to have value on this team. Yeah. I just don't know that he's going to be that regular starter. And I don't think you're not trading Arenado and Gorman so that you can get.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. I did wonder. I just wonder what the outlook is for him.
Yeah.
For somebody that has shown that he can hit. I don't. Yeah, clearly. I mean, I don't know. I mean, just because now you're starting to get stockpiled of some of the prospects, and there's some reports out there that the farm system has improved, drastically. Which there's conflicting reports on that. Now, the ones that I trust is Baseball Reference, and they seem to think that it has. But meaning, you have your Baez and those guys that are coming maybe quicker than anticipated. Is it JC a guy that gets squeezed out on this, or how many at bats do you see him getting this year? I mean, those are more mystery of how this season is going to play out. And it's also one of those head scratchers of make you a little more nervous that Arenado, if he's here, is really going to cause a problem. And it's kind of funny how they did double down that hey, a buyout's just not necessary.
Yeah, I mean, there's arguments to be made that your team is better with Nolan Arenado than Nolan Gorman at third base this year. I don't know how far you want to go into those, but I think some people could make those cases. Even though I do understand, and probably it is better for Nolan to move on. I just don't see the market. I don't know who wants a glove first third baseman that's league average hitter right now, at even at $15 million, depending on what the Cardinals want to pay for it. When a lot of teams have prospects or power hitting guys or something there. Now, I don't think I rule out a resurgence from Arenado either. I don't think he's ever going to be back to what he was, but could he be a above average hitter for a year or two? It's a possibility. Um, it's hard to necessarily gamble on that, but um, I forgot where I
Well,
where did I start
that's
that conversation?
well,
I went down the
it,
Nolan Arenado trail and I forgot where I started.
well, and it's just the situation that the Cardinals have put themselves in, and a declining player
Yeah.
that's admired around here. I say around here in my household and in St. Louis, but it's just it's a kink in the hose. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it is.
it's one of those situations where it's just a tough situation. I mean, would I be excited in a situation where you're basically on the expectation that you're not going to compete anyway, of seeing an everyday infield of Arnaudo, Wynn, Weather, Holt, Burleson? Yes. You know what I mean? I mean, I would be like, that would be fun to watch on a day-to-day basis. Is it is it a major detriment to the organization in 3 years? I mean, yeah, maybe. I mean, but it depends on. I mean, are we saying that Gorman needs the at bats? You and I both think that he is who he is.
Mhm.
Um, so it's just a tough situation. And you're right. I mean, his market is going to be very late because you have not only you have Bregman. I mean,
Yeah.
you have a bunch of guys that are out there that are slowing things down again. That it's kind of the same situation as next year. I mean, he's expanded his list, but of those lists, is he better than what they have now? I mean,
Mhm.
you can argue that that's not necessarily the case. I mean, you're buying the name.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I still expect that something will happen, but like I've seen, maybe the Angels continue to buy out Anthony Rendon and then trade for Nolan Arenado, which would not be at all outside the realm of possibility for the Angels to do.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, for the JC, I think, man, I think that he's a good piece to have, but I don't know that I worry about featuring him a lot.
Hmm.
You know, and again, if somebody gets hurt and he has to play, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. But I don't I don't think that he's, any kind of key part of a plan. And then could you see him get moved in the right deal, like as a second piece to a puzzle? I would think that's a possibility, although I don't think you trade him with Donovan because they're similar players. Would you trade him with an Arenado to maybe ease up a little bit of how much salary you have to pay? I guess that's possible, but um, and I mean, and that's really what we're looking at, right? I mean, those are the only two guys that come spring training we expect to be traded. Because I mean, there's that, there was the talk about Lars Nootbaar, but that seems to have all kind of
Sure.
died down. And like you said, there's not been any kind of indication on Jordan Walker. And it does feel like the Cardinals want to keep Alec Burleson. And I don't think anybody's just going to overwhelm them for Burleson. Um, so yeah, and
A Burleson trades, I think signals that this could be a long time.
maybe what?
That's
Yeah,
and I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but I'm not sure.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I see what you're saying, and it may be right, but I also don't. I just don't know what Burleson is. He was a very good player last year. Is he that player? Is he going to be better than that player? Is that a peak of what he could be? Because I want to say he was still, what kind of league average when you put everything together, defense and offense and everything. Um, but the Cardinals seem to think that there's more there, and
I tend to agree a little bit of him being the everyday first baseman. I think that you will see an improvement.
I think that's fair. Um, it doesn't hurt him at all to
Yeah.
be able to get out there um, and get an ever playing time, because that's even when he was doing well last year. There were times where he didn't and he was better. I look pulling up his numbers. Offensively, um, looking at it on Baseball Reference, his OPS plus was 125. So, 290, 18 homers. If you're getting that, and you can put him at first base and not have to worry about him in the outfield, yeah,
Yeah,
I can see that. I can see that. Getting the regular time. And it feels like looking at his career, that's not. It doesn't feel like he had a career year last year, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think that that's a reasonable thing. He is 26, so, you know, he could be that kind of player, which is not a superstar, but which is a good addition to a team for quite some years.
sure. Well, can you be a 125, 25 homer, 25 double guy, and who I think will be a really good defensive first baseman? I mean, that's valuable asset.
Yeah, yeah, there's no doubt about that. I will agree with that. Um, and I don't think there's any particular reason to think he can't do that.
Yeah,
Like I said, I don't think like last year was like, oh, some sort of way out there. It was in line with what he's been doing. So,
sure.
um, well, and we'll have to see. But yeah, being able to, and we'll see how first base goes. I mean, we've seen him play first base, and he seems to be fine at it. It's not a Jose Martinez situation. So, who I saw just retired. Did you see that?
Yeah, I
Um,
did.
yeah,
Crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty interesting. So, um, anyway, yeah, I think that's where we're at now. It feels like I don't know. I was going to say, we said last time we kind of thought everything had kind of shut down. Do you expect that the Cardinals? I mean, when do you think Donovan actually gets moved? Do you think it
I,
happens before winter warm up?
oh man, shoot, I don't know. I mean, it's I is the Bregman deal just holding up everything right now
I
about where he's going to go, because then you have to redirect on so many different things. But you know, I would think that the Mariners may be involved
mhm,
in a Bregman type situation. San Francisco, the other rumored candidate or rumored team for Donovan. I don't, of course, with Chapman.
right.
That's not going to happen. But so you think that any of those things can happen quickly? Um, I don't know. I mean, I want to say yes, but I'm just not certain. That's all. I mean, what, we're 2.5, maybe 3 weeks away from that. I just don't see it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much Bregman, like you said, a lot of very few of the teams that seem to be tied to Donovan are in the Bregman race too. I mean, it's not impossible to say that that's having an impact, but I would be a little bit surprised. I think more of it is just, I mean, one, like you said, Marte and others, on the at second base being out there, but
Yes,
once that clears, whether Arizona decides not to trade Marte or whatever the case may be, that may give an impetus. Um, but it's also, I think, Heim Bloom had, I don't want to say he's had his hands tied, but had a little bit more of, for Gray and Contreras, he had to send them to a place they wanted to go. And I think he felt an obligation to send them to a place that was going to be competing. And once he got a deal from one of those kind of teams, he could go ahead and make it, because it was just, he didn't have to necessarily hold out for the best deal. I think he almost has to with Donovan, because anybody could take Donovan, right? Anybody could, use a guy like that.
sure.
And so you can hold out, wait, play offers against each other, that kind of stuff. I still think that they probably get it done by winter warm up, if at all possible. I think they'd like to not have that hanging over their heads. I don't think they can get Arenado done by then, but if they could go into winter warm up, because Heimblum's going to have a interview or something of that nature there, and I think he would like to be able to go in and say, "This is our team," as much save that third base situation, but this is pretty much where we're at, and we feel good about the prospects we brought in and all that kind of stuff. I would bet it gets done before winter warm up. Now I don't think
Yeah.
it gets
So
done much before
maybe
that.
maybe right after the the dead period, so to
Mhm.
speak. Maybe. I mean, I would like to I would like to see it happen if it does happen fairly quickly, just to you can start breaking it down a little bit, and I think that may be their best return on a trade too, where we'd have a pretty good idea of the player that they brought back, and it's maybe one name that we know, more than others.
Right.
If you just scratch the surface on some of the prospect type stuff. So yeah, just on a selfish front, if he's going to go, I'd rather it be quick. But man, I would have said he was gone by the winter meetings, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I kind of thought so too. Yeah, I agree. I think that has been one of the things. Again, not as prospect people, but they're guys like these guys might be good, but I've not heard the names. It would be nice to, even if you haven't heard the names, you're taking a team's second or third best prospect, especially if they've got a good system. And maybe you can do that with a Donovan, or a name at least that has been bandied about recently, because the top level of prospects have a better feel for than 9, 10, 11, 12 on a team's list. So I would like to see, or it's possible that Donovan even brings back a major leaguer as well.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's what they're looking at, but especially now that they've, obviously they would always take a pitcher, but now that they've kind of gotten a lot of young guys in that rotation, they may not be focused on that as much. But with Seattle, there was that talk of trying to pick off one of their lower ranked starters because they've got so many of them in the major leagues. Whether that was feasible or not, who knows? But yeah, I think the Donovan's return should be more of maybe an impact that's going to happen in 26 or 27 versus what some of these guys are looking at more like 28 or 29 for the Red Sox.
Yeah, that's I think I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that will be the one that brings back someone that's either helps immediately or can help immediately in St. Louis that wasn't going to help immediately in some other organization, and that would add a little bit of excitement to it. Yeah. Or maybe that's the right-handed bat, or say veteran pitcher they bring over as well. Yeah. But basically, I think that you're going to have a more recognizable name that comes back with Donovan.
I think so. And hopefully we're talking about it soon. This wraps up season 11 of this show, which is kind of hard to believe. We'll turn the corner next week. Hopefully, I think we can still get Alan to kick off.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Season 12. And then the week after that, I know we've got Jeff Jones lined up as the guests start rolling in, still working on getting some of those lined up. But we'll probably try to get back at it next week. Maybe we'll do a little bit of, look back at 25, look ahead at 26 if there's not been a lot of action. But until next time, for Alan, I'm Daniel. Good night.
Good night.
Burke deep out in left center. Tavares pulled over into a right center. Lane pacing in his right field position. Albert digs back in. Open stance deep in the box. Bends at the knees. Holds it down on the end. League is ready. With 2 on and 2 out. His 0-1 pitch. It's coming. Swing and a long one. There it is, baby. The Cardinals take the lead as Albert Pujols comes through in the pitch. And the Redbirds lead this baby 5-4. What'd I tell you, folks? David Eckstein, the man. This could be a crushing blow to the Houston club. Albert Pujols, you talk about a most valuable player. How is that? Woo! That thing left the ballpark in a hurry. A 3-run home run, and the Cardinals lead 5-4.